Hakadosh Baruch Hu, Masechet Yevamot Daf Amud Aleph 24a1. We were just mentioning yesterday that how are we comparing the two cases? We were talking about the four brothers getting married to the two of them getting married to two sisters, and then what happened was the ones that were married to the two sisters died, so therefore they do chalitza and not ibum. Yasha, can you compare both cases? Hatam over there, right? If there's a mandamar that there is a zika, so yes zika. So therefore, each one of the sisters are for sure prohibited because of a chod zekuka, and the isur stays forever. But even the mandamar, if you're going to tell me now asur levatel mitzvot yevamim, asur levatel mitzvot yevamim, you're not allowed to come, and you're not allowed, right? Since both of them are prohibited to do ibum, so they're prohibited forever. Right? But by us, only one of the sisters was actually married. The other sister, we don't know which one it was. Because remember, our case was not that there was two brothers to two sisters. It was that you had two guys married to two women, to two sisters, and we don't know which one was married. So, each one of the women could come and tell you, which means that the Zekuka, the Ivama, could come and say, is that she was over on the Achot Zekukato, and therefore he comes and he says, since it's a safek, we're not going to make a knas b'diavad if each one actually came and they both got married. Okay? Fine. The two dots. Two dots says, Kadmu v'kansu and motzim, Tani shila v'afilu shneim kohanim, even if they're both going to be kohanim and they got married. Now remember, kohen is not allowed to get married to a chalutza, to a woman that did chalitza. Still, even if both brothers are kohanim and they both got married, it's going to be okay. My tama, what's reasoning? Chalutza de rabbanan, it's rabbanan. Safek chalutza, so since it's safek, so they didn't make a decree. Which means here we have a doubt bichlal if she was the one that needed chalitza or not. Maybe it wasn't her, maybe it was the other one. So because of that, each one is a safek chalutza, it's going to be permitted. So ask the Gemara, chalutza is only the rabbanan, but we learned in a braita, girusha mi-ishah lo yikachu. What does that mean? Isham grusha mi-ishah lo yikachu. En li ela grusha, we know a grusha. Chalutza, minayin, how do we know chalutza? Talmud lomar ve'ishah. Where when it says ve'isha, so that's coming, the extra vav is coming to teach you that we're talking about a chalutza. So answers the Gemara, midrabananahu ukra smachta be'almahu, and the pasuk is just ana smachta. The smachta, so meaning mideoraita kohen could get married to a chalutza, but because it's the rabbanan that she cannot get married to a chalutza, and it's ana smachta, and in this case, since it was a safek, so therefore that's why even if they were both kohanim, they could get married to the two different women. Okay. We're on the Mishnah. This Mishnah is going to be a very simple Mishnah, but then we're going to go into the depths of the Mishnah. Okay? The Mishnah says like this, mitzvah bagadol liyabem. Mishnah kavdala Amud Aleph, it's one liner. There's a mitzvah for the gadol, for the eldest of all the brothers, to do the ibum. In kadama katan, but if the younger brother came and he did it, zacha, he is going to be zoche. Tanu Rabbanan, we learned in a braita. Vayah bechor. What does it mean? Vayah bechor sheteled yakum. Right, that means the bechor, which is going to be born. Mikan shemitzvah begadol liyabem. Do you realize we're going to take the pasuk? I'll read out to you the pasuk, and then you're going to realize that the entire pasuk is going to be changed from its normal explanation. The pasuk says Vayah bechor sheteled, the bechor which is going to be born. Right? This is the pasuk in the Varim. Yeah. Vayah bechor sheteled yakum al shem achiv amet ve'lo yimache shemo Yisrael. Right? And it's not, his name is not going to be embarrassed, is not going to be erased from Israel. Right? Ve'lo yimache. So says the Gemara, Tanu Rabbanan, vayah bechor mikan shemitzvah begadol yabem. Meaning, we understood the pashut pshat in the pasuk, vayah bechor is the bechor asher teled, which is going to be born. Now we're saying, no, vayah bechor is the bechor of the family has to do yibum. Mikan shemitzvah begadol yabem. What is asher teled? We understood asher teled, which the woman is giving birth. Meaning the bechor, which the woman is going to be, the Yevamah is going to give birth to, says asher teled, prat lailonit she'en yoledet. Asher teled means that she has to be able to give birth. This comes to exclude that if the woman is an lailonit, right, she does not do yibum. Why? So she can't give birth. Yakum al shem achiv. What does it mean that it's going to be instead of the brother? It says the nachala, which means that the ach hamiyabem, he's going to get the inheritance of the ach that passed away. Okay, that's what happens. So says the Gemara, Ata omer lenachala o eno l'shem. Are you saying Yakum al Shem Achiv? Does that mean for Nachala? Or does that mean al Shem Achiv for name? Name means that you have to give the exact same name as the brother, the deceased. You have to give that name to the child. So what's the explanation? So says the Gemara, Ata omer lenachala o eno l'shem. So he says Yosef, according to Yosef, it's called Yosef. Yochanan, according to Yochanan. Right? What's the explanation? So says the Gemara. So says the Gemara, Ne'emar kan yakum al Shem Achiv. It says yakum al Shem Achiv. The Ne'emar lehalan, it says by the children of Yosef, al Shem Achehem yikareu benachalatam. So there's Gzira Shava. What's the Gzira Shava? Ma Shem ha'amur lehalan, just like by Bnei Yosef, the kavanah is Nachala. So to Shem ha'amur kan is also by Nachala, right? Which means that you don't have to actually call the name, okay? It's just the concept of the Nachala, but it's not an actual name. So then the pasuk says, "V'lo yimachesh shemo miYisrael." This was the last part of the pasuk. Yeah, you with me? Last part of the pasuk. "V'lo yimachesh shemo miYisrael." Prat lesaris. Beforehand, when it said Asher Teled, was Prat Lailonit, the sterile woman for the woman's side. Here we're not coming from the man's side. Prat lesaris, a man that's sterile. Sheshmo machui, but his name is already erased during his lifetime. Because since he can't have any children, so the name is already erased. So Amar Rava comes and he says, usually, whenever we have a pasuk in the Torah, we don't change it from its explanation. Okay? But over here, here, this Gzira Shava is coming and taking it out of the pasuk completely. Meaning it's completely changing everything. Because according to the Pshuto, meaning according to the simple explanation of the pasuk, you have to call the Bechor, right, after the one that passed away. And the Gzira Shava is coming to teach you that that's not the Pshat in the pasuk, and the Yavam does not have to call him Al Shem Beno. Okay? The love Gzira Shava, if it wasn't for the Gzira Shava, Hava Mina, I would have thought to say Shem Mamash. That you have to mamash call the same name. Leman kamaza rachmana. Who's it commanding to do that? Liyavam, to the Yavam. Yakum al Shem Achicha mibaile. So 1 second. What should have been written? The Gemara should have been written Yakum al Shem Achicha. Meaning like this. If the Torah is commanding the Yavam to call the first child from the Yibum after the name of his brother, so then in the pasuk it shouldn't say Yakum al Shem Achiv. It says Yakum al Shem Achicha. You're speaking to the Yavam, and you're commanding the Yavam that you have to come and you have to Yakum Hashem Achicha. Ile Bedina, if it's commanding to the Bedin, so Yakum Hashem Achi Aviv mibaile. It should have been written that Yakum Hashem Achi Aviv, right? Because obviously we're talking about Achi Aviv. So therefore, here when it says Yakum Hashem Achiv, we're coming to teach you a Gzira Shava. So says the Gemara, maybe the Torah is talking to the Bedin. And it says, Imru Yavam. You have to tell the Yavam, Yakum al Shem Achiv. Elatai, but rather he comes and he says, right, Gzira Shava pakta legam. The Gzira Shava comes and completely takes it out, that it's not kipshuto, that we're not talking about the name, but rather we're talking about the Nachala. Okay? Nekuda. Now that you just told me that we're talking about a Gadol, so why don't you just say now that the Bechor could do Yibum, and a regular son, a regular brother cannot do Yibum? So says the Gemara, no, you can. If so, why do you need a pasuk to exclude Eshet Achiv Shloeh B'Lomo? Why do you need a pasuk to exclude a person that he wasn't living at the same time as a brother? Anyway, it's only the Bechor and not a Pashut, and that's it. So says the Gemara, Parich Ravacha is going to come and he's going to ask the following question: Ve'ema lemiyute buchra. Maybe it's coming to be memayet the bechor of an ima, of a mother, which means what happens if right now we needed it for a bechor to the mother and not a bechor to the father, which means that you do have a bechor, but it's a bechor on the mother's side, meaning that they're sharing the same mother, not sharing the same father. Answers the Gemara, you can't say that, because we already learned this many times, by the way. Yibum is always talui in nachala. Nachala min ha'av v'lo min ha'em. Nachala is always on the father. never on the mother. Right? Yerusha is always on the father's side. It's never on the mother's side. So because of that, we know that it's not talking about Yibum. So says the Gemara, why don't I say Kiika Bechor titkayem mitzat Yibum, Kileka Bechor lo titkayem mitzat Yibum? Why don't I just say when there's a Bechor, there's Yibum. When there's no Bechor, there's no Yibum at all. So Amar Krat says in the Pasuk, Umet achad mehem, that one of them died. Milo askina the met Bechor, we're not talking about the Bechor died. The Amar Rahman and the Katan, you still have to do Yibum to the Katan. Because when it says Umet achad mehem, usually we're talking about that it could be the Bechor died. And if the Bechor died, there's a younger child, and he still does Yibum. So don't tell me it's only the Bechor. So says the Gemara, why don't I say the opposite? Maybe the child, the younger one, died, and therefore the Torah tells to the Bechor to do Yibum. So says the Gemara, we already said this. The Torah came to exclude Eshet Achiv Shelo Yavo Lamo. So ask the Gemara, Ve'ima kileka Bechor, Kadam Katan Zacha, V'ika Bechor, Kadam Katan Lo Zacha. Why don't I say when there's a Bechor, if the younger brother comes and he does the Bechor, when there's no Bechor, if the younger brother comes to do Yibum, it's a good Yibum. Why? Because there was no Bechor. But if there is a Bechor, so even if the younger brother came to do Yibum, he doesn't do anything because it has to be done with the Bechor. So Amarka, the Pasuk says, Ki yeshvu achim yachdav. Uksha, there's a hekesh, a juxtaposition, Yeshivat achim zelazeh, which means all of them are fitting to do Yibum. So says the Gemara, Ve'ema kiika Bechor le'ad al-gadol. So why don't I say that when there's a Bechor, we always go to the Gadol, which is the Bechor. But when there's no Bechor, so then it's on everybody. And we don't even look for the older one. So Alama Tani, why do we learn Abaye Kashisha, Mitzvah Begadol Yabem, that it's always a mitzvah in the Gadol to do it. Velo Ratza, if he doesn't want to do the Yibum, Olchim Etzel Achiv HaKatan, you go to the younger brother. Lo Ratza, if he doesn't, you go to the older one again. You try to force him to do it. So says the Gemara, Ke Bechor, like the Bechor. What does that mean? Just like the Bechor, Bechorato Garmalo, which means the Bechor, it caused him to be the one to do the Yibum. Af Gadol, so to the Gadol, Gedulato Garmalo. It's his greatness which causes him to do the Yibum. So therefore, right, each one, I mean, it's not only just in Bechorah, it's also in who's older, also will have that effect. So says the Gemara, Ve'ima ki miyabem Bechor lishkol nachala, ki miyabem pashut lo lishkol nachala. Why don't I say that only if the Bechor does the Yibum, he gets the nachala, he gets the inheritance of the brother of the deceased. But if it wasn't the Bechor that did the Yibum, so then the Acha Pashut, the regular brother, does not receive the nachala. He does not receive the inheritance. So Amarka, the Pasuk says, Yakum Hashem Achi Varekam. What are you talking about? It said the Pasuk that he's instead of the brother, and he did it. He's instead of the brother. So says the Gemara, Vela Bechor the Kari Rachmana. So then why is the Torah coming and telling us Bechor? Lemay Hilchata, Kavdale Demubet, 24b. What's it coming to teach you then? So answers the Gemara, Legriuta, to exclude. Ma Bechor eno notel baroi k'mo muzak, af hai eno notel baroi k'mo muzak. A Bechor does not take P9 in something which is Ra'ui, only in something which is Musak, which means like this. A Bechor takes double portion. When does a Bechor take double portion? In something that the father has in his hands. What happens if the father doesn't have it in his hands, but it could come later on? In something that comes later on, the Bechor does not take double portion. The Bechor takes double portion in something that's physical now. If in the future, let's say he's got some stocks, and all of a sudden now the stocks go up in price, and now the guy made another $10,000, the Bechor does not take double portion in that. Because a Bechor does not take in Ra'ui, something that's fitting to come, only in something which is Muhzak, that he's holding in his hands now. So the exact same thing, just like a Bechor only takes something in Muhzak and not Ra'ui, so to this brother is only able to inherit the Yavam, is only able to inherit the brother, the deceased, only in something which was Muhzak and not Ra'ui. Says the Mishnah, listen carefully. Hanitana la shivcha. If somebody has a voice that he's going around with a shivcha knanit, that means you have a voice that this guy is, wandering around with a shivcha knanit, nishtachrera, right? And then she was freed, or alanochrit, right, on a goya, and then nitgaira, and she converts. He's not allowed to get married to her. Yeah, so imagine you have a voice going out that this guy is sleeping around with a shivcha knanit, right? A rumor, right? Or with a goya, and then she converts. He's not allowed to get married to her. V'im kanas, but if he did get married to her, en motzin miyado, we don't force him to divorce. Hanitan eleshatish. What happens now if there's a rumor going around that he's going with a married woman? And then the betin forced her to divorce. Afal pi shekanas, even though he got married to her, Yotzi. In this case, you do take her out. Meaning, if you have a case that a guy's rumor that he's going around with a married woman, and then all of a sudden the bet had to divorce her because of such a rumor or because of such a case, and then what happens is the guy wants to get married to her now. No, not now. It doesn't work anymore. Says the Gemara, Hagioret miahavya. He says, what? Are you going to tell me that she's a Gioret Kshira? Urmini, we have a contradiction. Echad ish nitgayel l'shum isha, ve'echad isha nitgayel ra l'shum ish, ve'chem ish nitgayel l'shum mishulchan melachim l'shum of Shlomo. And I'm getting. Imagine you have now a man that gets married to get married to a Jewish woman, or a woman that converts to get married to a Jewish man, or somebody that converts to benefit from the king's table, right, to have food, or because of it during the times of Shlomo Melech. They're not a get, right? Why? They're doing it for an interest. Well, that's called a get. That's not a get. That's an interest. So he says, those are the words of Nechemia says, whether it's people that they converted because of the fear of lions. There was a time during the Jewish history where HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent lions, right, to the Kutim, right? And therefore, in order for them to be saved from the lions, they started converting. So now they didn't convert because they really wanted genuinely to become Jewish. They converted because they didn't want to get eaten up by a lion. You understand? So he says, Ve'echad gerech halomot, or gerech halomot, right? That means because they were told in the dream that they had to convert. Ve'echad gerech Mordechai ve'Esther, or during the times of Mordechai ve'Esther. Imagine, Mordechai ve'Esther come and they're killing out all their enemies. So all of a sudden people are all converting. Right? Why? Everyone's, they're afraid of the Jews. And I'm gerim. They're not going to be gerim unless they're going to convert nowadays. So says the Gemara, well, now, now like nowadays, which means like this. Nowadays we're not in a time of conversion. Meaning we're not, our hand is on the top. We're always being persecuted. We're always being, so therefore it has to be that the conversion has to be done in a time where it's actually good to convert, not just stam that they're converting because we're on the top of the world. During the time of Shlomo Melech, we were on top of the world. So obviously people are going to convert, right? But not because of generally being conversion. So says the Gemara, Hitmanallah was written, Amar Mitzvah Shmuel, Mishmeh Marta, Mishmeh Derav, Halacha is Kedivre Omer, Kulam Gerimim. There's a machloket, and one of them holds no, that they are Gerim. So says the Gemara, Yihachi Afilu Lechatila, so for 1 second. So then even Lechatila, why doesn't he get married to this Goya that she converted? So he says, Mishum de Ravasi, because of Ravasi. The Ravasi says, Haser mimecha ikshut peh uzut sfatayim. A person should take out his mouth, remove himself from the mouth of motzia diba, which means like this. Why are you going to do something which people are going to talk about? You were just running around with a goya, yeah, and now she converts. You're going to get married to her. Why are you going to do something that people are going to be talking about you all day, saying, look at this guy, he was running around with a goya, now she converted, now you got married to her. You understand? So because of that, it doesn't work. We'll finish with this. Tanu Rabbanan, en mekablim gerim limot Mashiach. When Mashiach comes, we don't accept gerim. No gerim during the time of Mashiach. Kayotze bo lo kiblu gerim lo b'mei David lo b'mei Shlomo. The same halacha applies not during the time of David Melech or Shlomo Melech. Why? Because of the exact same concept. It's during the time of Mashiach, everyone's going to want to convert. So during the time of Mashiach, we don't accept gerim. Okay? So, we're just continuing where we just mentioned the Tanu Rabbanan and the Braita that we're not going to accept Gerim during the times of Mashiach, and just like they didn't accept Gerim during the times of David HaMelech or Shlomo HaMelech. So says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Elazar, says Rabbi Elazar, Ma'ikra, what's the pasuk? That from there we learn that we're not going to accept Gerim during the times of Mashiach, because it says in Yeshaya, Hen Gor Yagur, somebody that comes to convert, okay, Efetz Meoti, right, when I'm going to be with you, Bizman Hazeh, Migari Tach, Alayich Yipol. He says only if Shmisha Mitgayer, now during the time that you guys are in Aniyim, then Alayich Yipol, then it's going to get Olam Haba. So from here we learn that only when we are in a status of down, that if a person converts, they get accepted. But if we're going to be the status on top of the world, like David HaMelech or during Shlomo Melech, or during the times of Melech HaMashiach Bezrat Hashem Bekarov, right, in any of these cases, we do not accept Gerim. Okay? Listen to this. Hanitan aleh shetish. If a person is going to be suspected of going with a married woman, and then they took her out of her marriage because she's suspected of foul play, okay? And then what happened? And now she wanted to get married to the guy that he was the cheater. He was the one that did this. So he says, Yotzi, they're going to, even though you got married, you take him out. Amar Rav Sheshat, says Rav Sheshat, Amina, I'm going to say, Kinaim v'shachiv Rav, Amar lehai shmatata. Do you know that when Rav was dozing off, That's when he said this Braita. So Rav Sheshat comes and he says, when Rav was dozing off, he said this. It wasn't when he was awake. Why? He says, the Tanya was learned in a Braita. There's a Tosefta. The Tosefta says, Hanitana leshet ish yotziu al yado. If somebody has a rumor that he was going with an eshet ish, and then they divorced her, right, because of him, right, and then she gets divorced, right, from somebody else. In kanas lo yotzi. If Reuven comes and gets married to her, so we're not going to force her to get divorced. Hechidami, what's the case? If there's witnesses, so what do I care now that there was somebody else in the middle? Right? You understood the case one more time. Hanitana leshet ish, for example, right? Reuven yatzal of kol that he went with an eshet ish. Who? Dinah, the wife of Shimon. They went and they forced Shimon to divorce her. So now she went and she got married to Nachshon, to another man, okay? And she got divorced from Nachshon. All of a sudden, if Reuven, which is the original guy, right, that he was the one that, because of, the voice and the rumor and everything, if he goes and he gets married to her, he doesn't have to get divorced to her. So says the Gemara, if there's witnesses that Reuven went with this married woman, so what do I care now that in the middle, Nachshon got married to her? What do I care? There was witnesses. Even if somebody else is going to come and he's going to break the rumor, right, because he got married to her as well, what do I care? Obviously, there's no witnesses. The ta'ama, and the reasoning is, if somebody else came and he broke the call, he broke the rumor. Okay, but if not, mafkina, we do take her out. So you see from here, right, that even though there's no witnesses, right, and this is against Rav, even though there's no witnesses, right, you still take her out. Because Rav came and he said, Amarav ube'edim. It's with edim. What are you talking about? Rav Sheshat says he's sleeping. Because even without edim, you would still do the same thing. It's only because there was a pasek, there was a hefsek in the middle because of Nachshon. But if there was no Nachshon in the middle, right, so you would take him out, even though there's no witnesses. So Rav is going to answer you, the exact same halacha would apply even if nobody else came in the middle. Meaning, one more time, Reuven, there's rumors going around, Reuven sleeping with the wife of Shimon, Dinah. And then what happens? They divorced Dinah because of it. Right? So then what happens? There was no witnesses. So he says, if there's witnesses of the action, they're going to take him out of Reuven. But if there's no witnesses for the actions, they're not going to take him out for Reuven. Which means, according to Rav, even if Reuven gets married to Dinah afterwards, if there's witnesses, you take her out of Reuven. But if there's no witnesses, even though there was a rumor, she was sleeping around with her, it doesn't matter. They don't take her out.
So then we will know with the process of
come on, this is what it means to say. Even though somebody else is coming and he's making a sek in the call, he's making a stop in the rumor. Still, you're not allowed to get married lechatchila. Meaning lechatchila, Reuven is not allowed to get married to Dinah, even though Nachshon came in the middle. Okay, because Nachshon came in the middle and he got married to her. Okay, so ask the Gemara, Meitve, we're going to ask the following question. When is it that we force her to get divorced? Only if she doesn't have children. But if she has children, we're not going to force her to get divorced. Right? Why? Think about why. One more time. The case is that Reuven, there's rumors Reuven is sleeping around with the wife of Shimon, Dinah. What happens is they divorce Dinah because of it. And now Reuven gets married to Dinah. Says the Gemara, you should divorce. We force Reuven to divorce Dinah. Right? Why? Because of the call. So says the Gemara, when is that? Only if she doesn't have children. Because if she does have children, she has children, we don't take her out. Why?
They suffer the first time from the first divorce, they're not going to make them suffer just for a rumor.
No. Not because of the suffering, because of the la'as. Meaning like the la'as. La'as is because of the, what are people going to say? Because if you're going to take her out from Reuven, what are people going to say? That means, Be'emet, she went with Reuven. So she went with Reuven, what happens to her children? Maybe all of her children are mamzerim. Because if she's already fooling around, right, maybe the children were also from fooling around. So because of that, in order not to be motzi la'az, exactly. So in order, it's not on her, it's on the liladim. So it's in order not to take out a la'az on the children, that they're mamzerim, we come and we say, leave her married. Okay? But if right now there's a detuma, meaning there's a din that she did do this action, afilu yeshla kama banim, even if she has a few children from the first husband, tetze, she goes out What does that mean? You see from here that we could actually say that the first part was talking about without edim, right? Because only in the second part we said that even if she has a few children, if there's edim, there's edim. That means if there's edim, there's nothing what to talk about. But if there's no edim, so then it all depends whether she has children or not. So says the Gemara, Rav Muki lam matnitin b'yesh la banim b'yesh la edim. You're right. Rav comes and he says that our Mishnah is talking about that she has children and there is witnesses. So since she has children, we don't force him to divorce her. Okay. However, though, he comes and he says, unless there's witnesses, obviously. However, though, Rav never had the kavanah of saying that you always need edim in order to get a divorce, because if there's no children, right, even without edim, you get a divorce. There's no children, get a divorce. There's no problem. So says the Gemara, why do you have to say that our Mishnah is talking about that she has children and they have edim? The tamadi kadim, and only because there's edim you take her out, and if there's no edim you don't take her out. Lukma b'shein labanim, just say that there's no children. So afagav the lekadim. Why do you say there are children and there's witnesses? So if there's children, usually we don't take her out. But now there's the witnesses, we take her out. Just say there's no children and no witnesses. It's the exact same thing. If there's no children and no witnesses, you still take her out because you're not going to be motzi laz on the children. There's no children. So you just get her divorced because of the foul play that took on beforehand. So Amar Rava says, Matnitin kashite. The question was from the Mishnah. Why does it say hotziuha? They took her out. Litni hotziyah, that the husband divorced her from himself. Ela hotziyuha is beveddin. Hotziyuha means that the betting took her out of the husband. Not that just the husband went and he threw her out, right? And he divorced her. The betting took her out. So therefore, betting, they only take her out be'edim u'lemak. They would only take her out with witnesses, because they would never force the husband to divorce her unless there's witnesses. Meaning, even if there's a rumor, be'edim will not get her divorced. But if there's witnesses, be'edim force him to get divorced. Okay? V'yibayteima, if you want, you can answer. Hanimatznata Rabbi. This Mishnah is actually Rabbi. Tetaina bezmulant in a braita. Rochel yotze v'isha chogere b'sinar. Amar Rabbi. Hoelu mechuar davar. Another answer. Rav holds that we, just like we mentioned in the beginning, that really be'emet, he's not obligated to divorce her because of the kol by himself. But the two braitot are actually, it's not only a kol. There's a raglaim l'davar. There's something much, much deeper. What is it? Imagine right now, a husband gets home and a rochel is leaving the house. A rochel are peddlers. In the olden days, they used to come and they used to sell perfumes and everything to women. So this guy, all of a sudden, is coming home, and that guy is leaving his house. Yeah. Now this guy Ki'ilu, he came to sell something, right? Obviously, he sold a little bit too much. Yeah, but he came to sell things to the wife, right? But all of a sudden, the guy comes out, and he comes into his house, and his wife is putting on her sinad. The sinad is like a pants which were used for tzniut. So imagine the guy's coming out of the house, he walks in, the guy's coming out, and then he sees that his wife is like putting on her, whether you want to call it or whatever you want to call it, you understand, her underclothing or the, the husband's thinking, what's going on over here, right? Amar Rabbi, says Rabbi, since this is something which is disgusting, because obviously if she took off her, her sinar, right? That means obviously it was for znut. What's she taking off her sinar when some strange man is coming into her house? So obviously it was for znut. Tetzeh, she leaves her husband. Gemara, right? Another case, rok lemala min akila. If all of a sudden there's rok, which is phlegm, on the top of the kila. Remember, in nowadays we don't understand this because people don't have the concept of phlegming in all places. Just to show you how crazy it was in the olden days, they used to take out phlegm all the time. That's why in the Bet Knesset they used to take it out. There's a whole question that you can't do it in the Bet Midrash. Nowadays it's a zilzul, but in the olden days they used to come in the you understand? They used to come and they used to phlegm. They used to do whatever it is in the Bet Knesset. Nowadays, they're not talking about if you have a rock above on the kila. What does that mean? In the olden days, the majority of the beds they used to have a kila, which means that what? There was no thing as nowadays. Usually you have a room. So the private room, you don't need anything. In the olden days, even within the room, right, they used to have, it was like a tent over the bed, like a canopy. So they used to have like this tent on top of the bed. So therefore you would go inside and you would be able to close and it's closed. So even if you had other people in the room, you were privately in your house, as if to say, your canopy with your wife. So he comes and he says, so now this canopy doesn't have a high ceiling. right? The ceiling is a regular ceiling, right? But it's not very, very high. So what happens right now? He says, Amar Rebbe, one second. If there's phlegm on the top, what happened? The one that's lying down, right, which is the woman, she comes and she spit on the top, right? And she phlegmed on the top of the kila. And therefore, one second, if you come into your house and you go to your bed, right, and all of a sudden there's rock, right, on the kila, you think to yourself, one second, right? What's going on here, right? He wasn't with his wife right now. Why is there a phlegm, right, on top of the kila? What's going on? He says, that obviously somebody was there. He divorces her. She leaves her husband. Why? Because of that, right? The next case, right? Minalim, kafei amud aleph, just on the top. Minalim afuchim. When you have tachat amita, when you have, imagine again, all these cases, the rochel is coming out of the house, and he comes in and he's finding these weird things going on, right? Hey, there's something wrong here. You understand? This is mamash, this is weird, right? He comes into his house, and all of a sudden there's how do you call them? Shoes underneath the bed, right, which are facing downwards. Okay, the Gemara is going to explain what this means. So Amar Rebbe comes and he says that for sure somebody else was there and he came and he turned them down, right, in order that they shouldn't recognize them. So it's siman for znut, right? That means they didn't want that all of a sudden they're going to see his shoes. So he would turn them downwards. That way, even if somebody would come in, they wouldn't see all of a sudden that there's this guy's shoes. So basically, there was like hiding, right? There was all these things were hiding. Tetzeh, right? You go out, right? Why is it that you go out, right? Because, right, you're what's it called? There's obviously something here. So the Gemara is going to ask about the upside down shoes, but this is a shita that we're talking about. That here we're talking about that it wasn't just a voice or rumor coming out that she did something wrong. You understand? Meaning that there's something much stronger here. That all of a sudden he's coming out and she's putting on her clothing. He's saying, "Iwa, what are you doing?" You understand? Or things like that. These are the cases that we're talking about.